think we should be done in 15 or 20 minutes. Hi. Going to keep this as short as possible for everybody. I think we should be done in probably 15 or 20 minutes. It's about a minute to 12, so I'm going to go through the disclaimer and then we'll get started. Thanks.
Bradley N. Meyer Property Management Made Easy. Webinar disclaimer asterisk. The information provided in this webinar is for general informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, financial, or rental management advice. The content presented is based on the knowledge available up to the time of this webinar and may not encompass the most up-to-date developments in these areas. While we strive to provide accurate and current information, we do not make any representations or warranties of any kind, express or implied, about the completeness, accuracy, reliability, suitability, or availability of the information discussed. Any reliance you place on the information presented is strictly at your own risk. It is important to note that laws, regulations, and financial landscapes can vary greatly, depending on your jurisdiction and individual circumstances. Therefore, we strongly recommend that attendees consult with qualified legal, financial, and rental management professionals before making any decisions or taking any actions based on the information shared during this webinar. This webinar does not establish a client-consultant relationship between the attendees and the presenters. The presenters are not responsible for any losses, damages, or adverse outcomes that may arise directly or indirectly from the use of or reliance upon the information provided in this webinar. Additionally, attendees are encouraged to conduct their own research and due diligence before making any decisions related to legal, financial, or rental management matters. No part of this webinar should be considered a substitute for professional advice, and attendees should seek competent and personalized advice tailored to their specific situation. By participating in this webinar, you acknowledge and agree to the terms of this disclaimer and release the presenters, organizers, and any affiliated parties from any and all claims, liabilities, or responsibilities arising from the use of the information presented. Please consult appropriate professionals and conduct thorough research to ensure that any actions you take are in line with current laws, regulations, and best practices in your jurisdiction.
Okay, now we got that out of the way, which I was strongly advised to share with everybody. Just because you know how life can be nowadays. So I got another one I'm going to share with you guys. It's basically everything I'm going to be going over in this webinar. I'm just going to throw it up on the screen because it makes it a little easier. And I know there were 3 things, but I added about 3 or 4 more things that I thought would be very relevant. Also, I've got a couple of handouts that I'm going to put up here now that you guys can use. They're templates, basically use them however you would like. So they're free to use. I make no warranties or guarantees. Strongly suggest you talk it over with your accountants and your attorneys before you actually put them into practical use. So some of the clauses I'm going to go over are one of them that's like near and dear to me because I've dealt with tenants and fires and have firemen and fire women, fire persons, whatever the appropriate politically correct term is nowadays. There should be a clause in your rental agreement addressing of fire extinguishers, smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, and you should really stress to your tenants that this is something you really want them to be mindful of checking all the time. Tell them you really don't want to have to be going over to the house every month and testing them, and that you don't want anything to happen to them or their family. So it's real important that they make sure they test that. And you should have that in your tenant handbook. And I think that's one of the downloads I gave you guys, that you can add that clause in there, and also add it to your rental agreement and have them initial it, that they are accepting the responsibility of doing that. The next one is, in some places you can do it, some places you can't. I have done it in a few places, and it's not necessarily a late rent fee. It's structured different. It's a collection fee when you have to go out to somebody's house and collect their late rents. In the past, I've been able to hire off-duty sheriffs or off-duty civil police officers. I work out of the civil division, and I put in there whatever the basic fee is. I think the last time I paid, I think it was $65 an hour. But it was a deputy sheriff who went out and just kind of knocked on the door and said, "Hey, the rent's late. I'm here to pick up the check if you have it. If not, I just here to find out." And then that fee was charged to the tenant. So that went right into their agreement, because if I'm going to have somebody go collect rents, and especially if it's not somewhere local to you, if it's a 2-hour drive to have it done, you can set that up. You can also contact your attorneys and see if they have a good relationship with the civil divisions at the sheriff or the local police department, and maybe you can get them to do it. The other one is pet rent, which is a little different than pet deposits. It's like an additional rent if they have a pet. Definitely look into this for your specific location. Housing authorities and counties and cities and states have gotten crazy about this stuff over the last couple years since COVID. And I used to say get a pet deposit in addition to your security deposit. I've changed my attitude on that, because in a lot of places, the pet deposit is only applied to specific pet damages. And it can be hard to prove that their dog or their cat actually tore up something, as opposed to just having a security deposit that you can apply to any and all damages. Another one is extended or additional rent for extended guests, and have the guests fill out an application. Most of the rental agreements, anybody who stays over 2 weeks, 10 days, you want to add them to the lease and all of that, but you get a lot of blowback from tenants. So if it's actually in your rental agreement that extended guests that stay over 14 days, you collect more rent because it's more wear and tear on your property. Kind of puts the burden on the tenant, and it also gives the tenant an out for their friends that tend to ride what I call the sofa circuit. Can I just hang out at your house for a few days until I get on my feet? And next thing you know, 2 days is 2 months. It gives the tenant an out with, "Hey, look, the rent's going to go up if you stay here more than 2 weeks. And you're going to be covering that amount, because I'm not going to be covering that amount." So it works both ways. The fourth one is, and I'm really careful with this one on what properties I apply it to. I would do it on single family or maybe a duplex. I would never do it on a fourplex apartment or larger. Rental discount for minor repairs, which are tiny things like they broke a sprinkler head, or a screen door is squeaking. Just little stuff that's going to cost you a bunch of money to have a maintenance person go out there. I tend to give them like kind of a little built-in discount. And And I set that up at the very beginning before they even actually know how it works. So let's say your intention is to get $1,000 a month for rent. You set the rent at $1,100 and give them a $50 discount for on-time payments and a $50 discount for taking care of the little maintenance things. So you're still getting your $1,000 a month that you wanted, but just giving them a little discount, taking care of some of the little things. Those work all the time if they're presented right. And if they don't take care of the little things and the rent isn't paid on time, then it's in the actual rental agreement that if you pay your rent on or before the first of the month, you get the discount. If you don't, then you don't get the discount. So if the rent checks start showing up on the second or the third, the rent is now $1,050 a month. So you just picked up an extra, $600 a year, 50 times 12, without doing a rent increase because they're paying late. The other one, the fifth one, which is real important, is the clause on application on how money is received. Money paid by the tenant, and this is specific wording, and it's in the samples I gave you. It's money paid by the tenant shall be applied first to outstanding return checks and late fee charges. Second, to outstanding legal fees or court costs reasonably incurred by the landlord as a result of the tenant's breach. Third, to any outstanding debts due landlord. And lastly, to the basic rent. For example, if you've had to take money out of a security deposit to pay for some repairs, and next month the tenant pays you the rent, you take the amount you took out of the security deposit and apply that from the rent to that security deposit to bring the security deposit back up to the amount that it should be. Now what you have left is money you apply to rent, which is short by the amount you took out to apply to the security deposit. So now you can give them a 3-day notice on what they owe. Another example, if they paid rent late last month and never paid the late fee, you can take the late fee out of this month's rent, pay that late fee for them, take the remainder, apply it to this month's rent, and when you serve them a 3-day notice for what they're late, you're not serving them on a late fee. You're only serving them on rent. And in California and some other states, that'll save you because you cannot evict on late fees. You can't give them a 3-day notice and include late fees. Which leads me to the sixth one, which is replenishment clause. Tenant shall replenish the full amount of any security deposit applied to make necessary repairs to the premises within 30 days after receipt of a written demand to do so and an itemized statement describing the disposition of the security used. It's like I said earlier, if you have to take something out of security deposit for repairs, like they plugged up a toilet with wipes that aren't supposed to go down a toilet, or a child's toy, or something else, and they know better or should know better or been told not to because it's in the tenant handbook, they did it anyway, and you paid for it out of their security deposit, you send them a demand to replace the funds in their security deposit. And then the seventh one is a notice that says landlord may increase the amount of the security deposit required at any time during the terms of tenancy to maximize allowed by law, giving 30 days of written notice. So those are it, folks. That's everything in a nutshell. I'm pretty much done. So if you've got any questions, go ahead and let me know. I think I got this set up so we can answer questions. I'm kind of doing it by myself, and this is honestly the very first one I've ever done like this. So let's see, does anybody have any questions? If so, I think you raise your hand or post them. I'm not sure. If not, then I'm going to let everybody go. Oh, hey, the chat thing lit up. Oh, well, thank you, Miss McIntyre. Appreciate that. And thank you for letting me do this. I'll probably do some others. It's kind of fun. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Andrea, because I can't pronounce your last name. So the month to month, I learned that years ago, working with an investment group. They were big on get everybody in on a year lease, and some of the property management people and leasing agents weren't really doing a great job at screening. To be blunt about it, they were kind of grabbing warm bodies to meet their bonuses and quotas. And 4 months down the road, I'd have to be in court evicting people that should have never been renting the properties in the first place. And with them on a lease, it became a pain in the butt to do it, especially in this part of California. I believe it was up in Placer or Sacramento County. So I switched it to month after conferring with a couple of our attorneys. And what it is, and kind of the genius of it, is everybody starts on a month to month for at least 6 months. Gives you a chance to find out if you like the tenant. These were all single family homes, so it gives the neighborhood a chance to figure out if they can deal with the tenant, and the tenant a chance to figure out if they can deal with the neighborhood. After the 6 months, we would have a conversation about, you like the house, you want to stay, and people are basically creatures of habit. They get a pattern of driving back and forth to work. They get used to the neighborhood. They like the neighbors. They like the schools their kids are in, the grocery stores, the amenities around them, the property. So we would come in and offer them a 1-year lease or an 18-month lease or a 2-year lease, whatever they were comfortable with a small rent increase. I like to keep the rent increase to $1 to $2 a day. That's $30 to $60 a month rent increase, which was basically found money, because when they first started renting on a month to month, we were structured with that dollar amount also gave us our exact profit for each specific property. So it allowed us to keep the tenants longer and increase our revenue. And it gave us the opportunity to get rid of tenants that didn't work out, and we could make it a mutual thing where tenant really wasn't happy. If they didn't want to do a month or a lease, then we would leave them on a month to month, and a few months later, if we weren't happy with them, we would give them a substantial rent increase backed up by a market survey for the types of properties. If we were happy with them, but they just weren't comfortable doing a lease, we would leave them on a month to month and then approach them again in another 90 days and approach them again at their anniversary date with, you've been here a year. We really don't want to do month to month. We like leases. If we do a month to month, your rent increase is going to be $75 a month. If we do a lease, your rent increase is going to be $50 a month. And then leave it up to them. I hope that answers your question and explains it. If not, post up in the chat and let me know if it made sense. And can you guys let me know if you could download the files that I put up there? I'm not sure if that worked or not. On my end, I can't tell. Thank you, Andrea. Any other questions? Anything else? Okay, more questions. Cool. Oh, cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. Like I say, I've been on these, but I was never the person working the stuff behind them. So this is the first time I've ever had to do that. The presenting part was easy. It's the logistics on the back end that was kind of hard. I'm gonna take a quick drink. Any topics you or anybody you think would like to do like another one? I wouldn't mind doing maybe 2 a month like this that are real short, because we're only 20 minutes into this now. And personally, I always hated those 45-minute that person talking about how great they were. It's like, I don't care how great you are. I need you to solve my problems. If there's nothing else, okay. If there's nothing else, then I think everybody's got a lot to do for Saturday, and I appreciate y'all showing up. Future topics. California emotional support animals. We get a lot of questions and concerns. I don't have time for that today. And I know it'll take some research. Yeah, it'll take a little research. I got a few people I can reach out to on that. I was at a IRM training on that recently. But that's kind of one of the benefits of working with me. I do have all those standing memberships and those expensive management training group things that I go to and listen to. So happy to share all that. Yeah, emotional support animals are tricky. Personally, a dog or a cat, maybe a bird. When it comes to reptiles and other weird guinea pigs and stuff like that, I think I just have a hard time actually believing they support people. But that's my humble opinion. May not be legal or appropriate. Okay, well, if that's it, thank you. Appreciate it. Have a great day. And I think I'll close this out for now. Bye.